Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Holy smokes. Buckle up, Vikings fans, because the drama unfolding in Minnesota right now makes a Netflix series look boring. We're talking about a franchise-altering quarterback crisis that has ESPN insiders buzzing, general managers scrambling, and one injury-riddled young quarterback whose NFL future hangs by a thread. This is the story of how the Minnesota Vikings went from playoff contenders to quarterback purgatory in one catastrophic season, and why the next few weeks could determine whether this team becomes a Super Bowl contender or spirals into another decade of mediocrity. Let's start with the gut punch that Vikings fans are still trying to process. Remember Sam Darnold? Yeah, that's Sam Darnold. The guy Minnesota let walk out the door last offseason after he threw for over 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns in his breakout 2024 campaign. The quarterback who Kevin O'Connell transformed from a journeyman backup into a legitimate Pro Bowl signal caller. Well, here's the kicker that'll make you want to throw your remote through your television. Sam Darnold just won Super Bowl 60 with the Seattle Seahawks. That's right, the same quarterback the Vikings chose not to re-sign, the same guy they decided wasn't worth investing in long-term, just hoisted the Lombardi Trophy while leading the Seahawks to the #1 seed in the NFC. He completed passes to Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith-Njigba, orchestrated a dominant playoff run, and proved every single doubter wrong while collecting his second consecutive Pro Bowl selection. Meanwhile, back in Minnesota, the Vikings finished 9-8, missed the playoffs entirely, and are now desperately searching for answers at the most important position in football. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Seattle traded Geno Smith, brought in Darnold on a 3-year, $100 million contract, and immediately won a championship. The Vikings? They're $44 million over the salary cap, cutting beloved veterans like Aaron Jones and Javon Hargrave just to get compliant, and staring down the barrel of another quarterback competition that could make or break the Kevin O'Connell era. If you're a Minnesota fan, you have to be asking yourself, what if we had just paid Sam Darnold? What if we had kept the magic going instead of betting everything on an unproven second-year quarterback who can't stay healthy long enough to finish a game? Which brings us to JJ McCarthy, the 22-year-old Michigan product who was supposed to be the franchise savior, the 10th overall pick in the 2024 draft, the golden boy who led the Wolverines to a national championship with a record-setting career-winning percentage. The quarterback Kevin O'Connell personally anointed as the future before McCarthy had even taken a single NFL snap. Here's the brutal reality. JJ McCarthy has been nothing short of a disaster through his first 2 seasons in the league, and not entirely through his own fault. This is a young man who has been absolutely decimated by injuries in ways that would break most people's spirits. Let's walk through the nightmare timeline. McCarthy's NFL career began with heartbreak before it even started. In Minnesota's first preseason game against the Las Vegas Raiders in 2024, McCarthy tore the meniscus in his right knee. Season over. He spent his entire rookie year on injured reserve, watching from the sidelines as Sam Darnold led the Vikings to the playoffs while putting up career numbers. Fast forward to 2025, year 2, the year McCarthy was finally supposed to take over and show everyone why Minnesota traded up to draft him. And what happened? More injuries. So many injuries that it's honestly hard to keep track. Week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons, McCarthy suffered a high ankle sprain that kept him out for 5 straight games. He finally returned in Week 9 against Detroit, got a few games under his belt, and then boom, concussion symptoms after a brutal loss to Green Bay. Missed another game. Came back, started showing some actual promise with back-to-back solid performances against Washington and Dallas, and then the hand injury struck. During a Week 16 game against the New York Giants, McCarthy hit his throwing hand on a defender's helmet, suffered a hairline fracture, and had to leave the game. He missed the Christmas Day showdown with Detroit, tried to gut it out in the season finale against Green Bay, but had to pull himself out in the third quarter because he couldn't grip the football. The statistics tell a story of a quarterback who barely got to play. Across 2 NFL seasons, JJ McCarthy has been available for just 9 out of 27 possible games. That's a staggering 73% of games missed due to injury. When he did play, the numbers weren't great. 57% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns against 12 interceptions, 1,450 yards total. The Vikings went 6-4 in his starts, but many of those wins came despite McCarthy's performance, not because of it. This is a young quarterback who was clearly rushed into action before he was ready, whose mechanics are a mess according to multiple reports, and who has shown concerning lapses in maturity, including a selfish, taunting penalty against Green Bay after feeling himself on a run play. Kevin O'Connell has tried to stay supportive, praising McCarthy's growth and development, talking about being excited to work with him in the offseason. But here's what the Vikings coaching staff and front office know behind closed doors. They cannot go into 2026 with JJ McCarthy as their only option. They just can't. And ESPN's Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler just dropped an absolute bombshell report that confirms what everyone already suspected. The Vikings are not ready to give up on McCarthy, but they're also not ready to hand him the keys to the offense. Translation? Competition is coming, and it's coming hard. The Vikings need insurance, they need a legitimate backup who can step in and win games, and ideally, they need someone who can push McCarthy so hard that he either rises to the occasion or gets benched. This is where things get absolutely wild. According to Graziano and Fowler's reporting from the NFL Combine, the Vikings have identified their quarterback targets, and they're breaking them into tiers. Tier 1, the cream of the crop, the guys Minnesota really wants, Kyler Murray and Geno Smith. Tier 2, the fallback options, Kirk Cousins and Tua Tagovailoa. Now, before we dive into why this makes sense or doesn't make sense, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Both Kyler Murray and Geno Smith are currently under contract with other teams. Murray with the Arizona Cardinals, Smith with the Las Vegas Raiders. But here's the thing. Both teams are expected to cut these quarterbacks before critical contract deadlines, which means Minnesota won't have to give up any draft capital. They can just wait for the cuts to happen and swoop in with contract offers. The question isn't whether these quarterbacks will be available. The question is, which one should the Vikings actually pursue? Let's start with Kyler Murray, the most fascinating and polarizing option on the board. This is the former #1 overall pick in the 2019 draft, the Heisman Trophy winner from Oklahoma, the 2-time Pro Bowl quarterback who was supposed to revolutionize the Cardinals franchise. Murray signed a massive 5-year, $230 million extension with Arizona back in 2022, but that relationship has completely fallen apart. The Cardinals are frustrated with Murray's work ethic, his commitment level, and frankly, his performance on the field. He missed 12 games last season with a sprained foot, and before that, he missed the entire 2022 season with a torn ACL. Multiple sources have reported that Murray's mobility, which used to be his greatest weapon, is now shot, according to people close to the situation. He was benched late in the 2025 season in favor of Jacoby Brissett, which tells you everything you need to know about where things stand. Arizona has until March 15th to make a decision before another $19.5 million of Murray's contract becomes fully guaranteed. They're not going to pay that. Murray is getting cut, and his camp actually prefers it that way because he wants to choose his own destination rather than being traded somewhere he doesn't want to go. Here's where it gets interesting for Minnesota. Kyler Murray grew up in Texas, but has Minnesota connections. More importantly, he represents exactly the kind of high-ceiling, high-risk gamble that could either resurrect the Vikings' Super Bowl aspirations or blow up spectacularly in their faces. Murray's best football is legitimately elite. When he's healthy and locked in, this is a quarterback who can extend plays with his legs, make throws from impossible arm angles, and create offense out of thin air. He's only 28 years old, which means theoretically his best years should still be ahead of him. But, and this is a massive but, Murray has never had a coaching staff like Kevin O'Connell and an offensive coordinator who can actually develop quarterbacks. He played for Cliff Kingsbury, who got fired, and Jonathan Gannon, who couldn't get the most out of him either. The Cardinals have been a dysfunctional organization for years. Their roster has been mediocre at best, and Murray has never had weapons like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson to throw to. If you're a Vikings decision-maker and you truly believe in Kevin O'Connell's ability to resurrect quarterback careers the way he did with Sam Darnold, then Kyler Murray becomes an absolutely tantalizing option. Sign him to a one-year prove-it deal. Let him compete with JJ McCarthy in training camp. And if Murray wins the job and plays anywhere close to his ceiling, you've got a legitimate Super Bowl contender on your hands. The counter-argument, and it's a strong one, is that Murray's mobility is compromised, his injury history is concerning, and his attitude problems in Arizona suggest he might not be coachable. Some analysts have pointed out that Murray doesn't fit Kevin O'Connell's traditional scheme, which has historically favored pocket passers like Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold. But here's my take. If your only concern about signing Kyler Murray is scheme fit, that says more about your head coach's limitations than it does about the quarterback. Great offensive coordinators adapt to their personnel. Look at what Ben Johnson did in Chicago, taking Caleb Williams, a quarterback with similar traits to Murray, and building an offense around his strengths. O'Connell should want that challenge. He should want to prove he can maximize Murray's talent the way Andy Reid maximizes Patrick Mahomes or the way Sean McVay built around Matthew Stafford. If O'Connell can unlock Murray's potential, he goes from being a good coach to being an elite, untouchable coach. And frankly, with the Vikings roster still talented enough to compete, with their offensive weapons, with their defense, Kyler Murray gives them the best chance to win a playoff game in 2026. Not Geno Smith, not JJ McCarthy, Kyler Murray. Now let's talk about the other Tier 1 option, Geno Smith, the 35-year-old journeyman who had a career resurrection in Seattle, making back-to-back Pro Bowls in 2022 and 2023 before being traded to the Las Vegas Raiders last offseason. Here's what happened in Vegas. Absolute disaster. The Raiders gave up a third-round pick for Smith, signed him to a 2-year, $75 million extension, reunited him with Pete Carroll, his former coach in Seattle, and the whole thing imploded. Smith threw a league-worst 17 interceptions, was sacked 55 times, posted the second-lowest QBR in football, and led the Raiders to a catastrophic 2-13 record. It was so bad that Las Vegas got the #1 overall pick and will almost certainly draft Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza to replace him. Smith is getting cut, and the only question is whether the Raiders can find a trade partner first or if they'll just eat the cap hit and move on. Here's the case for Geno Smith in Minnesota. He's a known quantity with a high floor. When he was in Seattle, in a well-coached system with good offensive line play and weapons, Smith was genuinely productive. He's a veteran who knows how to run an offense. He won't turn the ball over at an alarming rate when protected, and he could absolutely serve as a bridge quarterback if JJ McCarthy needs more time to develop. The problem, and it's a big problem, is the optics. Think about this scenario from a Vikings fan's perspective. You let Sam Darnold walk out the door. Darnold signs with Seattle after the Seahawks trade away Geno Smith. Darnold then goes on to win a Super Bowl with Seattle. And your response is to sign the quarterback that Seattle dumped to bring in your former quarterback. It's almost comedic how bad that looks. It's admitting you made a massive mistake with Darnold while also settling for Seattle's leftovers. Beyond the optics, there's the practical concern. If JJ McCarthy can't beat out Geno Smith in training camp, a 35-year-old quarterback who just had the worst season of his career, then what does that say about McCarthy as a prospect? That would be devastating for Minnesota's long-term future. The argument for Smith is that he's safer, that he represents a higher floor for the offense, that he could win 7 to 10 games as a starter and keep the Vikings competitive while McCarthy develops. But here's the reality. The Vikings don't need 7 to 10 wins. They need playoff wins. They need to take the next step as a franchise. Kevin O'Connell is heading into a critical third season where if the Vikings don't win a playoff game, the seat is going to get scorching hot. Geno Smith doesn't give you that upside. He just doesn't. Even at his best in Seattle, Smith was a game manager who could execute an offense but wasn't going to elevate the players around him or carry a team through the playoffs. If you're the Vikings and you truly believe JJ McCarthy is your franchise quarterback, then fine, bring in Geno Smith as a veteran backup. But if you have any doubts about McCarthy, if you think there's even a 20% chance he's not the guy, then you need to swing for the fences with Kyler Murray. Let's also address the other names floating around. Kirk Cousins, the quarterback who spent 6 years in Minnesota and just got cut by the Atlanta Falcons after a disastrous stint there. Deanna Rossini from The Athletic has already thrown cold water on a Vikings Cousins reunion, but his name keeps popping up as a Tier 2 option. Look, Kirk Cousins is 37 years old. He's coming off an Achilles injury, and he showed in Atlanta that he's declining rapidly. Minnesota already knows what Kirk Cousins is, a good but not great quarterback who will never win you a Super Bowl. Why would you go back to that? Tua Tagovailoa is the other Tier 2 name, and while Tua has shown flashes of brilliance in Miami, he's a walking concussion waiting to happen. The Dolphins are expected to cut him because they can't trust his health, and Minnesota would be insane to trade for or sign a quarterback whose career could end on any given play. The ESPN reporting also mentioned Anthony Richardson, the Colts quarterback who has requested a trade after struggling mightily in Indianapolis. Richardson has mutual interest with Minnesota, and there's definitely intrigue there given his physical tools, but he's even more raw than JJ McCarthy and comes with his own massive question marks. The Vikings don't need another project quarterback. They need someone who can compete immediately and potentially start Week 1 if McCarthy isn't ready. Here's what I think the Vikings should do, and why it makes sense both short-term and long-term. Sign Kyler Murray to a 1-year, team-friendly prove-it deal. The Cardinals will still be paying most of his guaranteed money, so Minnesota can get him cheap. Bring him into training camp and create a legitimate quarterback competition with JJ McCarthy. If Murray wins the job, fantastic. You've got a former #1 overall pick, Heisman winner, and 2-time Pro Bowler throwing to Justin Jefferson. That's a recipe for a playoff run. If McCarthy somehow beats out Murray, even better, because then you know you've actually got a franchise quarterback who can compete with veterans. And if McCarthy struggles or gets hurt again, you've got Murray as insurance who can step in and give you a legitimate chance to win games. The worst-case scenario is that Murray doesn't work out, costs you very little money, and you move on after 1 year while continuing to develop McCarthy. The Geno Smith option is safer, but safer doesn't win championships. Safer is what got the Vikings into this mess in the first place. They played it safe by not re-signing Sam Darnold to a long-term deal. They played it safe by assuming JJ McCarthy would be ready. They played it safe by building a roster that's talented enough to compete, but doesn't have that true difference maker at quarterback. It's time to take a calculated risk. It's time to swing for the fences. Kyler Murray represents that swing, and frankly, what do the Vikings have to lose at this point? They're already over the salary cap. They're already cutting fan favorites, like Aaron Jones. They're already coming off a disappointing 9-8 season where they missed the playoffs. The status quo isn't working. Business as usual isn't working. You know what would be the ultimate Vikings move? Signing Geno Smith, watching him go 7-10 as a starter, missing the playoffs again, and then having to draft another quarterback in 2027 because you wasted another year. That's the safe play, and it's exactly the kind of move that keeps franchises in mediocrity. Kevin O'Connell has proven he can develop quarterbacks. He took Sam Darnold, a quarterback who was viewed as a bust after stints with the Jets, Panthers, and 49ers, and turned him into a Pro Bowler who just won a Super Bowl. If O'Connell can do that with Darnold, imagine what he could do with Kyler Murray, a quarterback who has infinitely more physical talent and is 6 years younger than Geno Smith. The narrative that Murray doesn't fit O'Connell's scheme is nonsense. Schemes adapt to players, not the other way around. If you've got a quarterback who can run a 4.4 40 and make throws off platform that 99% of NFL quarterbacks can't make, you build your scheme around those abilities. You give him play-action concepts. You design bootlegs and nakeds that let him use his legs. You create easy throws off play fakes, and you let him take shots downfield to Justin Jefferson when defenses creep up. This isn't rocket science. The Vikings are at a crossroads. They can play it safe with Geno Smith, hope JJ McCarthy magically stays healthy and takes a massive leap forward, and probably finish somewhere between 7 and 10 wins. Or they can take a calculated gamble on Kyler Murray, create real competition, give themselves multiple pathways to success, and potentially unlock a quarterback who could lead them to a Super Bowl. The clock is ticking. Free agency opens March 11th. The quarterback market is going to move fast, and if Minnesota hesitates or overthinks this, they could miss out on both Murray and Smith, leaving them scrambling for scraps like Mac Jones or Malik Willis. That's not a position you want to be in when you've got a roster that's talented enough to compete right now, when you've got Justin Jefferson in his prime, when you've got a coaching staff that's proven they can win. This is the decision that will define the Vikings' next 5 years. Get it right, and you're playing meaningful football in January with a legitimate shot at a championship. Get it wrong, and you're looking at another rebuild, another coaching change, another decade of disappointment. The Sam Darnold situation proved that the Vikings can't afford to play it safe anymore. They had lightning in a bottle and let it go, and now that lightning is hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in a different city. Don't make the same mistake twice. Don't settle for the safe option just because it feels comfortable. Kyler Murray is sitting right there, available for cheap, ready for a fresh start, and desperate to prove he's still an elite quarterback in this league. Take the shot, roll the dice. Bring him to Minnesota, surround him with weapons he's never had, put him in a system designed to maximize his strengths, and let him prove every doubter wrong. That's how you build a championship team. That's how you take the next step as a franchise. That's how you make up for letting Sam Darnold walk out the door and win a Super Bowl somewhere else. The Minnesota Vikings have a choice to make, and the whole NFL world is watching. Will they play it safe with Geno Smith and hope for mediocrity? Will they stick with JJ McCarthy despite 2 years of injuries and unproven play? Or will they do what championship organizations do? Identify the best available talent, take calculated risks, and trust their coaching staff to maximize that talent. The answer should be obvious. Kyler Murray is the move. It's the only move that makes sense if you're serious about winning a championship in 2026. Anything less is settling, and this Vikings team, this fan base, this organization deserves better than settling. They deserve a quarterback who can match up with Jared Goff in Detroit, Jordan Love in Green Bay, and Caleb Williams in Chicago. They deserve a quarterback who makes Justin Jefferson the most dangerous receiver in football. They deserve a quarterback who gives them a legitimate shot at ending their Super Bowl drought. Kyler Murray can be that guy. The question is, does Minnesota have the guts to go get him? So here's my call to action for you, Vikings Nation. Make your voices heard. Let the front office know what you want. Spam the comment section below. Do you want Kyler Murray, the high-ceiling gamble who could lead you to a championship? Or do you want Geno Smith, the safe veteran who might win you 7 games but will never get you over the hump? This is your team, this is your franchise, and your opinion matters. Drop a comment, hit that like button if you want to see Kyler in purple and gold, and smash that subscribe button because we're going to be covering every single development in this quarterback saga as it unfolds. We're posting at least 2 videos a day. We're going live twice a week, and you don't want to miss a single update as the Vikings make the most important decision of the Kevin O'Connell era. The NFL offseason is about to get crazy. The quarterback market is about to explode, and Minnesota is right in the middle of the storm.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000
Let's
subscribers
go.
and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.